Hello, I see more people have joined us.
Hi there.
Hi. Oh, it's 10 o'clock on those right now. I'm Lissa Provost. I am your host from the San Francisco Writers Conference. I'm the poetry track coordinator normally and the director of operations. So I, work with the hotel and make the things that happen. I'm excited to have this opportunity to hear from everybody. And I know some of our former presenters are probably going to drop in on us and say hi to you all. Ben, you guys ready to get started? Yeah? All right. You ready to start us off, Alex?
Yeah, sure, no problem. Good morning, everybody. Well, it's a wonderfully select group of 5 of us. I don't know how many more are going to drop in. I'd like to share with you this morning 2 poems from a recently published collection of mine entitled Poetry in a Time of Pestilence, Perspectives on a Pandemic. So a timely work with an apt title, let's say. And the first poem I'd like to share with you is called Drowning on Dry Land. Don't let me down, Doc. Don't let me drown. A desert dry cough, yet fluid-filled lungs. A suffocating tidal wave washes over me, takes my breath away. Take away my scuba tank any day. Cut my air supply beneath the waves. Let me float forever through fire coral gardens, led by schools of angel and trumpet fish. Swap my hospital bed for the seabed, in amongst the harmless nurse sharks. Don't let me down, Doc. Don't let me drown on dry land. So that's the first piece. And the second piece is entitled Escape. A brush stirs, flexing its long, thin neck. Bristles stroke the air in readiness. Indeterminate outlines of composition. Inky blue dots dart across the canvas. Marks of punctuation boldly announcing a speedy flotilla of dinghies. Billowing sails rippling red respond to invisible breezes. Carving tracks of phosphorescence through crested white horses, flecked with hints of turquoise. Shards of vibrant yellow beam happily from above. A dappled gold sea shimmers. Filigree shadows dance beneath dense foliage emerald green, tinged with deep orange, ripening fruit weighing heavy on branches. Smudges of ochre and muddy brown, denoting rocky outcrops, peek out from a verdant canopy. A gaggle of gangly seabirds, blotches black as a crow amid neutral spaces white as snow, duck and dive into azure waters, mottled with patches of purple, rebounding skyward, keen flashes of silver between their beaks. Anonymous shades of gray attempt to subvert clear blue skies, driven away hastily, to dump hazy pessimism elsewhere, a blot on another landscape, out of frame, a different easel.
So the first one is called Broken, 1942. Ah, sleep, the measure of me. Rest and find the beyond. Dive into sweet surrender. The old French song, the lights, the girls. Far away, the guns. Closer in, waking. Quiet, you say. Sleep. The empty cartridge rolls to my feet. Mud splatters my uniform, nothing but rags, like me. The boom, there is no French word. Boom, boom, boom. Rest now, you say. 25 years gone by. I lay my head on your naked breast and sleep. We have fireworks, you shake me awake. Something ripping the air. Sky turning over. Get under the blanket, she says, before dying. Rest, she says, from beyond. We were never one, no baby to tie us together. I leave her in the bed. She is no more, the measure of me. Old French song, singer on the stage. Gone, all gone, sleep. Thank you. The next one is a remembrance of many years ago. One of my brothers took me in the New Jersey suburbs to the house of a fortune teller. And in the pandemic, I remembered that day. And so I kind of changed it up, but that's the memory. Stroke. Her front door was mildewed aluminum. In the center, an S in a circle. It banged away in the night wind. We forgot to latch it shut. My brother brought me forward in the oven-warm house, a misaligned hen to his rooster, both of us served up to her. She wore no kerchief, no bracelets clinked together. She looked nothing at all like the gypsy he'd promised. A frayed housecoat fell around her too large, snaps fastened up to her parchment throat. Come here, she said, not getting up from her kitchen chair. Fingers grazed my good palm. Jagged dance in attempt at a graceful swirl. Unkept nails scratched soft skin. You said goodbye to a man. He broke your heart. And just as I was about to sigh, of course you would say that, she breathed the name of his mark, an eagle, wings spread, full, just below his belt line. No one knew but me and his 1,000 other lovers. She named a flower I once kept, nailed to my bedroom wall, in another city, in another time. My brother smiled. But did you see the stroke? I asked. My brother frowned. Her fingers dug into my palm. Of course, she whispered. I snatched my hand away, but she fast caught the edge of my sleeve. The working side of my mouth curled in disgust. No, let's go. You were late, she said. You were told to come. The door banged. The stitching on my sleeve opened the tiniest of tears. I told you, my brother said. I told you. Thank you. And I have a third one here. That's it. Allegiance Revisited. Remember, allegiance comes, lips parted, an altar not unlike marriage, suggests itself at first, and then becomes passion. Remember, faith comes, fawning in mountains of guilt. She parts her robes, forgetting her torch and crown, and you rush in. Here in the now of time, I beg you, stay, stay. The mountain will come to you. But you pull on your hat, your gloves, you take up your handmade sign. And it is then that and it is then that I realize I am the one who must remember as you walk into the night and make yourself part of forever.
Hi, I'm Luke from San Francisco, and I'll just read my poems. They're dedicated to Lawrence Ferlinghetti, who had a celebration 2 days ago, and to Jack Kerouac, and Allen Ginsberg, who I really admire. So this first poem is called "This Is Who I Am." This is who I am. I am a poet, and you know it, because I am fucking crazy, but I am also sane. I am deluded in my brain. My thoughts are profane. This is my song without music. However, the melody is not abusive. You see, I want to speak for you what you cannot say. I want you to hear what you don't hear. I evangelize with my words, both the beauty and the absurd. Now the poetic plan unfolds. I want to save your literary soul. So when my poem tells you that a beautiful day is like taking 1,000 hits of LSD while flying to a paradise of infinite wonder where Jim Morrison is smiling, steering a crystal ship, accompanied by a rainbow of incandescent unicorns, then that's when you need to listen, man. Because when Armageddon appears, I will give you the courage to face the wonders of the apocalypse. I read to you now, not from the book of life, but from the Tibetan book of the dead instead. Hear the beauty and magnificence of the end of the world. It is the plan of destruction unfurled. Charles Bukowski laughs at the filth, degradation, and humiliation for all of you drowning in that evil sea. And now, this is the end. This is the end, you motherfucker, for you and for me. I told you this is the end. This is the motherfucking end. This is the end. I'm a poet, goddammit. Thank you. And this is my second and last poem. It's called Beatnik Artist Right Now Rap. It's about the process of writing and finishing your art, whatever it is, whether it's a poem, a music, or a novel. Artistic deadline in my face. Gotta jam and write. Must finish before the night. Waking up to see the sunlight illuminating all over the place. I must win the race. Win the race. I see the wise as and spiritual owl through my window, watching and waiting, watching and waiting, watching and waiting, and taking off. The mystical bird flies off into interstellar space, entering the heavenly gates, landing reverently at the feet of Shiva, Vishnu, Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad. Enlightenment achieved. Through my mind's eye, I grasp the essence of the perceived revelation to finish my literary inspiration. Right here and now, forget why and how. Thank you.
I'm going to read a poem about writers, since we're all writers. This is called, What Does It Mean to Live at the Whim of My Pen? What does it mean to live at the whim of my pen? To lay at bay, waiting for the next brilliant inspiration to channel through me. To stare at a blank page, yearning for more to come forth. It means running out of the bathroom mid-shower like there's a fire, dripping wet, scampering across the living room floor to pick up pen and paper. It means sleeping with a notebook next to my bedside, prepared for the 3 a.m. wake-up call to get that surprise, dreamy thought committed to paper. It means interrupting friends mid-sentence in their story to explain, I just have to write this down before I forget it. It means having spontaneous conversation with my speakerphone, making sure the words are typed exactly as I dictate them. It means never saying no to the words, the phrases, the blocks of thought, but to instead dwell in a state of constant surrender. Overall, it means 24/7. I live at the whim of my pen, to be ever vigilant, ever ready, and at every end to stand back to observe the words of my pen, whether I deem them good or bad, and to be thankful they chose me, to accept with grace and an open heart all that is gifted to me as a vessel for words to flow through into the world. And the second one is called Ode to My Reader. You are the canvas upon which I choose to paint. Your imagination I am determined to set free, to run wild with new thoughts infused by my pen. I want to bend, to warp your mind, to perceive new ideas, to stir your emotions to a depth you had forgotten yourself capable of. When you set the page down, you will have bore a new perspective. Your opinions are now seen through a new light, to be inspired into action of a sort you had not yet pondered. When you put the page down, you are changed, you are transformed. This is why I write for you, my reader, my love.
Okay, I'm a former San Franciscan, so I'm honored to read with this group, and I've lived in actually 15 different cities. I currently live in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Okay, this is a poem I wrote when I lived in New York City the first time. It's called The Fabric Store. A poet brought me a magic gift, a bright red apple jewel to decorate the wayward shelves of a fabric store, to fashion in shimmering fabric robes the souls of all who come to buy. My shop is a haven for faces who barter with thread and scissors from 50 foreign nations of Upper East Side. Like bright crisscrossings, wanderers stalk the warp and woof of fabric threads, spy designs of lollipops or yellow patchwork clowns, make dresses for a little girl's game imagined from 2 bolts of orange checkered challis. Tipping on toes to the tops, brocades amble from the shelves to rearrange on dressmaker forms, carefully cut out memories of us. For you have chosen organdies of deepest violet, remnants from the nimblest weavers of Japan. Since fragile fabrics can't be bought or sold unless the buyer learns 12 quatrains from the Rubaiyat, or why Imruel declared that poems, like snakes, forever change from skin to skin. Now you're amazed since I've chosen for myself more common cloth, a turquoise gingham cotton print worn by a timid slave to Elizabeth Barrett Browning. You've seen me wear it several times before. Then I'll have other fabric bolts stretch out the door, pretending to dress each passerby on 77th Street in Harmony Hues. Second poem, second time I lived in New York was in Brooklyn on the Heights. And if you see the Limu Emu commercials, the backdrop is the promenade of Brooklyn Heights. I don't know if you guys see those in San Francisco, but they're broadcast everywhere else. Okay, poem on the promenade. From a perch of steeple bars carefully framing the promenade like wind chimes pleating swift air currents, the evening awaits, a poem out of place on the promenade. Below, the BQE streaks past my prison last exit. I watch hair flying. The careless mazes of cars drive past, wind corners turning the bridge's lines in the distance, framing the islands, careful reflection. Now my hand, a notebook scribbling, what is the risk, these pencil marks? Our prisons, freedoms, words overflowing. Onto the river's eastern wanderings, complex reflections, they frame my secret. Choices, illusions, my mind deconstructs its thoughts, this traffic to destinations. My poem has traveled, a poem out of time. And let's see, do I have time for one more?
I think so.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. When I was in New York, I dated someone who was doing his PhD in Portuguese. And this poem is entitled Lisbon's Soliloquy. These are the forbidden nights, pale streets wandering in and out of memory in morning, coffee stains on red and chocolate checkered tablecloths in bistros where the girls sip tea, where old men spy. You came once to visit me, a letter postmarked Lisbon. My thoughts of Paris leave me now, so let this letter mean goodbye. My feet are tired of wandering. I've rid my nights of all your dreams cut out of checkered tablecloths. Here the rain screams down on lonely pebbled streets, its thousands lost saudade, as crowds of children whisper, what can we do with this city when you've gone?
Wow.
This is a current event kind of poem, and it's entitled The Glimmer of Justice. Can you hear me okay?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's entitled The Glimmer of Justice. I remembered the day that my father asked me if I ever saw a Black man hung. He used the other word, all that Mississippi writhing through his veins. I cringed. The very last time he used that word, I left his house. He didn't live to rue this day. The ghosts of all those bodies swaying from trees, men and women sacrificed to the strut and preen of white supremacy, held in the DNA of the heirs to the throne of injustice. As justice melts away, just ice. Veredictum, to speak the truth. But whose truth? That of the cock who genuflected at the altar of bigotry and violence for 9 minutes and 29 seconds on the neck of George Floyd, a lynching, some called it. There is no law against lynching. We have a verdict, the judge announces, as the nation watches, the split screen trained on his honor and the defendant. The jury is off screen. He fumbles with the envelope. His face reveals nothing as he flips through the counts. 2nd-degree murder, 3rd-degree murder, manslaughter. In the streets, outrage and grief suspended, unrest on pause, the nation quiet with foreboding, hope dangling on each verdict. Guilty, guilty, guilty. The jurors, 4 white women, 2 white men and their peers, 3 black men, 1 black woman, 2 multiracial women, each one polled, sound a chorus of certainty in their unanimity. I watched the cop's eyes flit left and right, his brow arched in disbelief, the entitlement shattered. Does he feel the knee of law on his own neck, or imagine decades behind bars with all those men sentenced to the chauvinism of bigotry? The streets erupt in shouts. Strangers embrace. Tears bless faces. The president calls the Floyd family. Pundits speak of true justice, but the dead are gone. Yet today a ray of light pierces the thick smog of darkness. It chokes the breath out of belief and change until and the title, I'd like to give a nod to Gwen Carr. I borrowed it from the post-verdict comment she made. She's Eric Garner's mother.
Thank you. So I'm excited about that. I haven't published anything new this year, but this is my poetry book, Diary of E.A.Provost, and then it flips to Diary of a Weird Girl. This is the light side poems, and these are the dark side, the ones I didn't let anybody read until until I went to publish them. You know, the ones we all bury in a drawer and don't want anybody to know about. So those are my poems, and I'm actually going to read something that I wrote during National Poetry Month, which of course was April. And actually two poems. The first one is kind of short. All of our kids are home from school, and this is about my youngest. 14 and radiant, a light not dimmed by isolation and plague. You may crawl into bed with me on a tough morning, but as the sun climbs, you haul yourself up by your aspirations and are closer to adult in your occupations than a mother wants to see. I indulge the last childish whims of my last child as they pass into memories that the adult you're becoming will hold as dear as I hold you now. A lot of my poems are about parenting and those sort of family experiences, especially in the light side of this book. Second poem is Thriving in Quarantine. Just the quiet I needed to pull the loose threads of my life together into the tapestry I always wanted it to be, but never had the time, or couldn't reject the invitation to engage in meaningful distractions, but distractions nonetheless. Picture me at home and happy about it, fed and fit with my to-do list done and projects finished. No meetings once a month for 8 different parent organizations, plus fundraisers to plan for people who would rather be where I am now, on my couch with a cat on my lap, sipping iced tea from Lennox Crystal, because today is enough of a reason to use the fancy dishes, because today I am still alive and tomorrow has never been more uncertain. Social obligation is a phrase banished from the lexicon in favor of essential outing, which is a fancy way of saying I only do the things I must to keep my household alive. I'm obliged to be selfish for everyone's sake. watching others push the limits, vacationing too soon, visiting friends, abandoning the masks and distancing that I found so liberating, like children without responsible parents to remind them, Christmas morning comes more quickly when you're asleep. The end is coming, but it's delayed because you're up and about, and I don't really mind. I don't want to see everyone I saw before or go at the pace I went when I neglected myself and the house that needed so little to become the nourishing haven a year of living here intensely and purposefully has made it. Sometimes you pursue happiness. Sometimes you're shoved into it against your will.
I'll read one right now.
All right.
This is one that I wrote about. This came from a writer's prompt that I did in one of my writers groups. It's entitled "The Moments I Cherish," and it was written about my backyard. Anyway, I spend my hours on my porch settee. The view of the neighborhood is my window on Main Street. People, feathered friends, and fur babies alike. My own personal concert that entertains me in an enchanted theater. Oh, the sorrow I would feel should I lose these sounds, to never hear the voices of jays, the dialogue of Molly, my favorite mockingbird, or the breeze through the palm tree, see the clouds in the west sky put on a show of cotton-like beauty. The setting sun in a rich reddish sky, the silver full moon glows in a star-studded night. In a deep, dewy dawn. How could I ever live without this beauty I enjoy? I protect my ability to go on. I'm alone now, but not entirely lonely. With my colorful world and my good health, the moments I cherish will see me through to live another day. Oh, good. I've got another sort of similar to the first one I wrote. I got a whole string of poetry that I've got on my thumb drive, which is on my other system, but I've just got a few that I'd like to share with everybody. This one is entitled "The Courtyard," which was sort of written about my yard and my home as well. And here it goes. The courtyard, lush and green, teeming with life, my place of solitude, of comfort and peace. My secluded courtyard with its four walls, a tall hedge, a hillside, my house in my garage. It hides me from the world. A thick stump jade plant stands like a miniature oak tree near a jungle of smaller jades. A fuchsia, an orange tree, a grandfather wisteria, an aging butterfly bush. Lemon trees lavish in their pots, a marguerite, a Texas primrose, bees in the blue flowers on the hillside of rosemary. Overlooking this theater, a fruitless mulberry sheds its last leaves for the year. A Norfolk Island pine, a stone pine, needles browning with age. Japanese maples, a hibiscus. Two long-necked sculptured birds, George and Gracie, hide in the lush green ferns. The steel-framed gazebo, teal curtains, wicker rockers, and table. Two hummingbird feeders. The birds flock to them, viciously chasing their rivals away. A blue jay on the wire observes from a high place. A mockingbird chatters her tales as I sit in my chair. Sipping my wine, I wait. The glow of a full moon is on the rise. Resting my mind, I know my place. Here I can realize my comfort and my peace.
I get it here. This is a sonnet for my husband. Well, sort of a sonnet. In youth, we hiked up breathless mountain peaks and overpasses chasing thunderstorms, across knife edges, precipitous snowy patches, through icy alpine streams that rush downhill. At 60, my knee began to creak and ache, my joint replaced with titanium, plastic, and glue. You cooked, cared, and coached me back to health, so we could hike through hills of purple lupin. But tonight you lie in bed and wake me up to fetch your son to lift you out, in dead of night to take a piss, and to your face bring a smile or flinch. This morning I lead you past creek banks of poppies, waiting for thumps from my cane in your hand.
I'll read you a short poem.
All right.
Okay, all right.
It's called Devotion. A strip of mulched soil skirts the white cement path. A power wheelchair is parked on the side, empty, and no one's on the bench nearby. A rustling of leaves and wood chips directs my gaze. An old man, thin, in baggy corduroy pants, plaid shirt, and blue baseball cap, kneels on the dirt, head bowed low, propped on his left hand, right hand busy weeding around a plant, his knobby fingers still nimble at the task. A worshiper, a flower.
The first thing I'd like to share is some very good news about Fog and Light, San Francisco, through the eyes of the poets who live here. This book was published 6 weeks ago by Blue Light Press. It's been on the bestseller list for more than 5 weeks now. It made #1 for poetry about places and #1 for anthologies. #2 for love poems, #10 for all American poetry. So really, really happy about this. And I'm going to read a poem from the book. My poem, Mahler on Race Day, is about taking 2 cellos on the Enjuta to play Mahler on Beta Breakers Sunday. Our conductor scheduled the concert before he knew the schedule of the race, so there we were. It was the only way to get to the concert. Mahler on Race Day has an epigram by Gustav Mahler. I shall soar upwards to the light which no eye has penetrated. In concert black, we carry 2 cellos to the Enjuta streetcar on Beta Breakers Sunday to play Mahler's Second Symphony. We take seats in the front of the train next to a unicorn, a dragonfly, runners in rainbow tutus, and a caveman with a leopard Santa Claus hat. Eric's tuxedo, bow tie, and hot pink cummerbund, well, everybody's in costume. We sit across from a furry gray cat and an angel with a red, white, and blue halo. To my left, a couple holding hands and wearing the medals they got when they crossed the finish line. She's dressed like a bumblebee, fuzzy antennas waving from her headband. He carries a bouquet of larger-than-life sunflowers. More people board the streetcar, a 3-eyed alien, a troll with pink hair, human-sized mice and bunnies, a leopard with a fanny pack and a 6-pack. A woman who flew in from Boston tells me that Beta Breakers is her 73rd birthday party. We invite her to the Mahler concert. She started piano lessons at age 66, no mother to tell her the piano won't fit in the house. A family of bumblebees climbs into the streetcar with black antennas and black tutus. One of them tells me the wings helped her up the Hayes Street hill. Standing in the aisle, butterfly hats, butterfly wings, butterflies. A cello isn't out of place in this crowd. I invite a butterfly to the concert, but she prefers early music. I tell her we played Beethoven's 9th Symphony last year. Beethoven? That's hardly early music. A bear in a fuzzy costume says that Mahler is so much better than the new music concert he heard last weekend. Sirens and pots and pans. The rainbow caterpillar agrees. Mahler has melody, chord structure, immaculate timing, and thundering beauty. Entering the streetcar, metallic space cylinder, svelte runner in orange neon shorts and rainbow snake earrings. Beta Breakers, 7.46 miles, a marathon up and down San Francisco hills, from the Bay Bridge to the Pacific Ocean. Mahler, quite a workout, 27 pages in the cello part, allegro maestoso at the starting gate. My teacher's advice, at the downbeat, play as fast as you can, keep running. At Van Ness Station, exit the streetcar, up the stairs, down the street, cross the race at Hayes. Traffic signals help, as we weave two cellos between the tutus. A few minutes before the call, we find the side door to the Herbst Theater and a friend who plays French horn for the San Francisco Ballet. Bill says, Mahler's Second Symphony at the Herbst Theater? Good for you, but is the building large enough to hold that piece? Curtain, conductor, start, it's under my fingers, and I keep intense focus as I play. Waves of beauty and mystery. The soprano soloist was one of the sent down children during the Cultural Revolution in China. She sang to keep herself sane, then emigrated across the Pacific to study opera. The mezzo, a Southern belle with honey voice and tango flowers in her hair, would do herself honors at the Mardi Gras. It's a hauntingly beautiful and mystical piece from the opening run to our standing ovation. After the applause, after we really did this thing, in the aura of post-concert afterglow, time to take cellos back to the outer sunset. On the streetcar, we sit inside a hive of bumblebees. A butterfly takes our photograph, tuxedo and concert black, holding cellos. For the next week, Mahler, a fat moon, and rainbow tutus in my dreams.
Hi, I'm Caroline Smadja, and I would like to share 3 poems with you today. The first one has not been published yet, and it is called Hunger. Hunger. On the streets of El Vedado, my guts ache from emptiness. The Cuban sun scorches my naked arms. I walk along Aunt Julia on the split cement that catches the tip of my sandals. For so many blocks, I stop counting before we reach a tienda, a store as vast as a warehouse and as desolate. A sad-looking man with a drooping mustache slouches behind the counter. And Julia asks if he's got eggs to sell. He gestures to the bareness around him. I have nada, except vermicelli. My eyes fall upon plastic bags filled with threads of yellow dough, piles of them everywhere, behind him, all over the floor. And Julia asks when he might get eggs. Mañana, perhaps, he shrugs. Today, only vermicelli. We turn around and walk back to her house. I feel faint, not just because time has passed and we've been walking in the heat with no food, and there's nothing to look forward to, nothing in Julia's cupboards, nothing in her refrigerator that will satiate me. Nada de nada. I only had 2 cups of black coffee since I woke up this morning. As we step back into her living room, and Julia announces with a smile that borders on mischief, as if it were a private joke between us. So, no eggs, no potatoes, only bread. Do you want me to cut you some? It is yesterday's bread that comes in long oval loaves. People show the storekeeper, not a baker, how much they want to buy, and he cuts them a piece. It weighs close to nothing and tastes dry. I guess it's made of yeast, water, and salt with little or no flour. Yes, I reply eagerly, but what about you? You should have something too. She shakes her head with the same big smile. No tengo hambre. Hambre. I like that the Spanish word for hunger is only 1 letter away from the word hombre for man. I would like to share another poem with you that was published a number of years ago in the Literary Journal of the Kurt Vonnegut Museum and Library, and it is called Spooning. When you roll over to my side under the aqua green quilt, your body cocooned around mine in the translucence of dawn, I curl up to the right at the edge of the bed, a fetus in the protective shell of human flesh, head sunk into the buckwheat pillow I've lugged from continent to continent. And nothing could feel more cozy, nothing more tender than your buttocks, my buttocks cradled against your groin, your chest pressed to my back, left hand cupping my breast. In the height of safeness, I drift back to slumber, at peace, the clamor of the world far behind me. And I would like to share a last poem with you that was published in a local San Francisco-based magazine. I think it was in 1916, I don't recall. And the poem is called Seaside, Oregon. There is a cove at the end of the beach, a half circle of blue licking the shore, where seagulls come to rest and congregate, the image of tranquility and repose. And as your boots squeak in the wet gray sand, you remember your footprints on another beach nearly 2 decades ago, mourning in the glorious eves of Indian summer while going through separation, then divorce. Along the same coast, Pacific, a gate to consolation, inner peace. And step by step, wave after wave, you remember the fierceness of the ocean swallowed your grief. Thank you.
I'm John Simons. I live in Honolulu, but I am a fan of San Francisco. I have a daughter and grandchildren, son-in-law who live there, and so we visit a lot. And I'm also a fan of the San Francisco Giants. Their games are broadcast here. So in going back to San Francisco as a part of a birthday gift to me, my family takes me to the ball game. So 3 years ago, and by the way, the Giants and the A's are both having great seasons. It's early, but they're both doing well. So it's great news for our Bay Area baseball fans. 3 years ago, at AT&T Park, as it was then called, the Giants had a little community relations event in which they allowed the children to come out of the stands after the game and run around the bases. You start at first base. So we said, okay, let's do that. So along with scores or perhaps hundreds of other people with their little kids went out to the baseball field after the game. And I was there with my grandchildren. So what happened is I thought to myself, gee, I might never get another chance to do this. So even though this was for kids only, when we got to first base, I decided I will take a chance and run along with these younger runners going around the diamond. So this is what I did. And this is called Dreams in the Dust. What was an 83-year-old man doing on the base paths at AT&T Park that late July afternoon, 2018? Living a happy fantasy he hoped would not end in handcuffs, that his excuse of granddaughter escort would convince stadium staff as he smiled at groundskeepers and others on watch at each turn of the diamond. Quote, I'm having a Walter Mitty moment, unquote, he said as he stepped on first base, right behind the girls, 10 and 6. Both racing to see who could circle the bases first, ignoring Papa jogging farther behind, feeling the hard brown dust pushed back against the cushioned soles of his birthday street shoes. The Giants had just beaten the Cardinals 13-8, capped by Pablo's towering splash into the right field cove, a prize for waiting fans in small boats to chase with long-handled nets. A souvenir blast from a maturing hero, beloved to fans as Kung Fu Panda. A fine light brown and pavement firm, the pass conveyed the gold dust promise of the city's history, and an old fan's young dreams detoured to distance running while still a fan forever, channeling Jeffrey Leonard, annoying the Cards as he celebrated playoff homers in '87, one arm down like a splintered wing, hinting or flaunting that being hurt put no limits on his power as he rounded candlesticks bases. The old gray jogger flashed back deeper to a white-haired man, seated, waiting, unseeing, to be honored at an unveiling. At second base, another smile, a further mitty comment. Then the Sonny jogged to third, remembering what extra bases felt like when this happened in a game. The base coach flat-handing signs to dive to beat the hard bounce outfield throw. The famous writer was still waiting for a ritual celebrating him to start. At third, the mitt he mentioned was the password, as smaller, younger legs crowded wide turns at the bag. Finally, heading home to stomp the plate, family cheering him in. "Nice going, Papa," said the 10-year-old. "You almost caught us." A parent at the plate laughed. "Something you can cross off your bucket list." "Yes, my Tapakata list," he thought, quick as a memory flash to a young writer's long ago moment. With James Thurber, then 65, blind, Mitty's author, nearing death in 1960, maybe sensing how tensely his sash-yanking Ohio hosts struggled to reveal an official portrait in his native Columbus. Thurber sat in quiet patience, perhaps daydreaming of cartoons or punchlines on aging in place, waiting for a slow curtain to yield a ceremonial round of applause, a too late entry for his carnival of hits. The base path wannabe, a Thurber fan, sensed beyond a baseball birthday, a fleeting comic world worth sharing.